Los Angeles, February 1977, 3:47 a.m. The phone inside the Playboy Mansion won't stop ringing. Reporters, editors, studio insiders who already smell blood. Hugh Hefner stands alone in his study, still wearing his burgundy robe. In his hands, a Polaroid photograph, edges already bent from being held too tightly. On the image, one of his models, Sondra Theodore, stands near a swimming pool. Her lower lip is split. A dark bruise blooms beneath her eye. She isn't crying. She's staring straight into the lens. On the back of the photo, scratched in pencil, just one sentence. She fell by herself. Ask her. TJ. TJ is Tom Jones. Welsh singer. International sex symbol. Golden Globe nominee. A man who believes fame is armor. Hefner places the photo on the desk. The phone keeps ringing. He doesn't answer. Instead, he picks up another receiver and dials a number he almost never uses. His personal attorney. When the line connects, Hefner says only 6 words. Collect everything. Absolutely everything. This is the moment when a man known for indulgence chooses confrontation. When pleasure gives way to calculation. When silence becomes a decision. And the question hangs in the room, heavier than the photo itself. What could drive America's most famous playboy to declare a private war on a Hollywood star who thought he was untouchable? Let us know where you're watching from, and we hope you enjoy the story. Below is part 1 of the story, written in English, fully aligned with your structure and constraints. Approximately 3,000 characters. Part 1. The Queen of March, 1976 to early 1977. March 1976 arrived in Southern California like a held breath. The sky over San Bernardino was pale, restless, already warm by noon. Sondra Theodore sat in the passenger seat of her friend's dented Chevy, watching girls in tight dresses disappear into a small casting office. She had not planned to step inside. Her textbooks were still in the back seat. Anatomy notes, nursing exams, the quiet life she believed she wanted. She was only there because her friend was afraid to go alone. The photographer noticed her through the windshield. He tapped on the glass, smiled, asked her name. Sondra laughed nervously and shook her head. But 5 minutes later she was standing under studio lights, blinking, wondering how a single wrong turn could already feel permanent. When Hugh Hefner requested to meet her, she expected the practiced charm she had heard about. Instead, he surprised her. He did not ask about her body, her dreams of fame, or what she would do for success. He asked why she studied medicine, what kind of nurse she wanted to be. He listened, fingers resting on a small black notebook, as if she were something fragile and rare. "I have models," he said softly. "What I need are women with minds." By May, the decision was sealed. Sondra would be photographed for a future issue. Hefner personally rewrote her interview, removing every generic fantasy of stardom and replacing them with her real plans: college, anesthesiology, independence. When her images were finally published a year later, the issue would become one of the best-selling of 1977. But that future still felt unreal, distant, like someone else's life. Her first night at the Playboy Mansion in June was not the spectacle she imagined. No chaos, no spectacle, only rooms full of arguments about censorship, chess games in corners, laughter that sounded tired rather than wild. Hefner sipped Pepsi with ice, scribbling notes, while Roman Polanski debated art, and Jack Nicholson lost at backgammon to Tony Curtis. Sondra felt like she had wandered into a secret society disguised as a party. By August, Tom Jones appeared. His career was faltering. Television had turned its back on him, And Hollywood offered only jokes in place of opportunity. He saw Sondra across the room and approached, champagne in hand. "You're too smart for this place," he said. "And you're too desperate," she replied. The silence around them was immediate. Hefner watched from a distance, saying nothing. Over the next months, Sondra drifted deeper into the mansion's orbit. She studied during the day, returned at night, sometimes sleeping in a guest room. Hefner paid for her tuition, gave her access to his private library. Their relationship lived in the shadows between mentor and something more, never defined, always charged. She trusted him, yet sensed the imbalance neither of them named. Tom continued to circle, never crossing a line, but always close enough to make her uneasy. In January 1977, his manager came with a plan. A new film, a comeback. All he needed was the right image, the right woman. Tom went directly to Hefner. "I need Sondra for the premiere. Just one night. I'll pay." Hefner's reply was calm. "She isn't a commodity. Ask her yourself." Tom did. Sondra hesitated, but curiosity, youth, and the promise of something harmless pushed her to say yes. She believed it was only an evening. She did not yet know it was the first step into a story that would change all of them forever. Below is part 2 of the story, written in English, fully aligned with your structure and constraints. Approximately 3,000 characters. The dress arrived on January 28th, folded like a promise. White Halston silk, open-backed, impossibly precise in its cut. Sondra ran her fingers along the seam before trying it on, as if touch alone could tell her what the night would cost. When she stepped in front of the mirror, the girl staring back looked older, composed, almost untouchable. Hefner entered without announcing himself. He stopped, looked, said nothing for several seconds. "You look extraordinary," he finally said. Then, quieter. "Take my number." He wrote it by hand on the back of a card. No assistant. No intermediary. "If anything feels wrong," he added, "you call me. Not the driver. Me." January 30. Mann's Chinese Theater burned with light. Cameras cracked the air open as Tom Jones emerged, Sondra on his arm, smiles carefully arranged. Reporters shouted her name as if they had always known it. For a moment, the world felt unreal, too bright, too kind. The illusion lasted until the limousine door closed. Tom poured whiskey, his third of the evening. The glass trembled slightly. "We're going to my place," he said. "I thought we were meeting people at Chasen's," Sondra replied. "Plans change, doll." His hand rested on her knee. She moved it away. "I want to go home." The smile vanished. "You think a $3,000 dress is charity?" The car turned toward Bel Air. By 2:30 a.m., the house loomed above the city, all glass and silence. Sondra stayed seated. Tom leaned in. "Get out," he whispered, "or I tell Hefner you tried to extort me." Fear made her legs move. Inside, he poured rum and cola. She refused. He insisted. His voice rose, sharp with humiliation. "You're nothing," he snapped. "A girl from a magazine. I made you visible." She ran for the door. Locked. He followed. She grabbed a bottle, shattered it against the table, held the broken edge between them. "Open it. Now." Something in her steadiness stopped him. Calculation replaced rage. He opened the door, then shoved her as she passed. She fell hard near the pool steps. Pain bloomed. Blood touched her lip. He stood over her with a Polaroid camera. Flash. On the back, he wrote, "She fell. Ask her." "Insurance," he said calmly. By dawn, she called a taxi. At 5:30 a.m., the guard at the Playboy Mansion saw her face and reached for the phone. Hefner arrived within minutes. He did not ask questions. He wrapped his arms around her. "Who?" he asked later. Silence. Then, "Tom Jones." Hefner poured whiskey for the first time in months. Drank it in one swallow. "Sleep," he said. "Tomorrow we decide." The next afternoon, she entered his office. Hefner sat with his attorney, Roy Cohn, and a private investigator. The air felt surgical. "You have choices," Hefner said evenly. "Police, silence, or nothing, while I act." "What does everything mean?" she asked. Cohn smiled thinly. "It means he never laughs on camera again." That night, Sondra understood. The fairy tale was over. What came next would be war. Below is part 3 of the story, written in English, strictly following your structure and tone. Approximately 3,000 characters. The work began quietly. By mid-February, Tom Jones was being followed without ever noticing it. 5 private investigators rotated shifts, each one invisible, each one patient. They watched him leave clubs after midnight, tracked the jittery confidence that arrived with cocaine, recorded names, times, doors left ajar. Studio 1, Spago, back rooms where tempers flared, and money smoothed things over before they could harden into consequences. Every detail went into folders. No drama, no judgment, just accumulation. Within 10 days, the pattern was clear. Chaos disguised as charisma. A singer trying to outrun decline by burning brighter, faster, louder. 2 affairs that could not survive daylight. A glass thrown at a waiter because the wrong table was offered. Apologies made through assistants. Cash slipped where apologies failed. Then, on February 26th, something shifted. A call came in from Las Vegas, Caesar's Palace. A gambling marker unpaid, $140,000. 60 days granted out of courtesy, not kindness. After that, contracts would be touched. Studios would be notified. Hefner read the report twice, then smiled. "Now," he said. "He's listening." March 1st arrived with a photograph. Playboy's party column ran it casually. Tom Jones, drunk, women laughing too loudly on his lap. The caption was dry, almost bored. The implication was not. Phones rang. His agent called Hefner directly. "What are you doing?" "We publish what we see," Hefner replied. On March 5th, Roy Cohn bought the debt. Clean, legal, silent. The casino was relieved. Tom Jones was not informed until a handwritten note arrived days later. "Your obligation now belongs to me. We should talk." The meeting lasted 15 minutes. Tom left pale, his smile finally gone. The choice presented was simple: public apology, or the debt transferred to people who did not use courts. He resisted, hired lawyers, filed motions. Every attempt dissolved before it formed. Judges knew Roy Cohn. Clerks knew his tone. The system bent without appearing to. On March 16th, Hefner made the call no one expected. Barbara Jones answered carefully. "I'm not calling for scandal," Hefner said. "I'm calling because you have a son." She listened, asked one question. "What do you want?" "Nothing," Hefner replied. "I just don't want him learning this from strangers." 2 days later, Barbara called Tom. She did not shout at first. She asked. Then she cried. Then she told him she would tell their son herself if he did not make it right. That night broke something no threat had touched. On March 20th, Tom called Hefner. His voice was small. "What do you want me to do?" "Tomorrow," Hefner said. "You sit on television. You say you behaved shamefully. Nothing more, nothing less." The next evening, Sondra sat beside Hefner, her hand locked in his. The studio lights reflected in the television screen like a firing line. Johnny Carson smiled, joked, then paused. "Tom," he said, You wanted to say something? Tom looked into the camera. 5 seconds passed, an eternity measured in breath. And then, the screen flickered to black. The silence afterward was unbearable. Below is part 4 of the story, written in English, fully aligned with your structure and narrative logic. Approximately 3,000 characters. The studio clock read 11:37 p.m. when the moment arrived. Tom Jones sat across from Johnny Carson, lights bleaching his face into something flatter, harder. 15 million people watched. In the Playboy Mansion, Sondra's fingers dug into Hefner's palm, nails leaving crescent marks he would notice later. No one spoke. Even the organ room seemed to hold its breath. "Tom," Carson said lightly, unaware of the trap beneath his words, "I hear you wanted to say something tonight." The pause stretched too long. Then Tom smiled. "Johnny," he began, voice steady, "I'm here because someone is trying to destroy my career with lies." Sondra felt the room tilt. Tom leaned forward, confidence returning like a familiar drug. He spoke of a young woman, of money, of manipulation, of a powerful publisher using scandal to sell magazines. He said her name once. He said Hefner's twice. Each word landed clean, rehearsed, irreversible. At the mansion, no one moved. Hefner's face drained of color. This was not fear. It was recognition. He had underestimated the desperation of a man with nothing left to lose. The broadcast ended. Phones rang before the credits finished rolling. Sondra broke first. Anger poured out of her in sharp, broken sentences. He lied. He lied to everyone. Hefner said nothing. He listened, calculated. When Roy Cohn arrived, already in Los Angeles, already prepared, he did not sit. He paced. "Good," Cohn said finally. "Now it's public. Now it's usable." Morning brought headlines, none of them kind. Newspapers framed it as a feud, a spectacle. Truth was treated like a prop. Hefner refused interviews, refused statements. Instead, he called Sondra. "If we continue," he told her, "you lose privacy forever. Your name becomes an argument. People will love you, hate you, dissect you." "And if we stop?" she asked. "Then he wins," Hefner said. "And he learns he can do it again." She closed her eyes. "What do I have to do?" The response was immediate. A lawsuit for defamation. $2 million. No theatrics. No shouting. Then came the call from ABC. Barbara Walters. Exclusive interview. Hefner advised against it. Sondra ignored him. The studio was neutral. No logos. No allies. Walters' voice was soft, almost maternal. The questions were not. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "Because he made sure no one would believe me." "Do you have proof?" "No." "So it's your word?" "Yes." The silence after her answer was heavy. She did not look away. The interview aired to millions. By morning, the tone shifted. Not belief, attention. Which was enough. 2 days later, a woman called Roy Cohn, a laundry worker. She remembered the dress. White. Blood on the back seam. Not much. Enough. She had tried to clean it. The affidavit changed everything. Tom's lawyer called him that night. The conversation was brief. Brutal. For the first time, doubt reached him. On April 5th, Tom sat alone in his house, listening to a message from his son. No accusations, just disappointment. The glass shattered against the wall. And for the first time since January, Tom Jones understood something essential. This was no longer about survival. It was about confession. Below is part 5 of the story, written in English, strictly within your constraints and structure. Approximately 3,000 characters. The call came at 7 a.m. Hefner answered it himself. The voice on the line belonged to Tom Jones's attorney, measured, careful, already retreating. My client is prepared to discuss a resolution. Hefner did not sit down. A public apology, he said, and compensation. A pause. $500,000, the lawyer replied. Confidential. No apology. A non-disclosure agreement. Hefner ended the call without responding. That afternoon, the room filled with people who understood cost. Roy Cohn laid out timelines, years of court, hundreds of thousands in fees, a case balanced on testimony and endurance, 50% odds, at best. No clean ending. Then he turned to Sondra. That money buys safety, he said, education, distance, control. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she asked only one question. And what does silence buy him? No one answered. That night, Hefner walked the grounds alone. The mansion felt hollow. This was no longer strategy. It was a test of what his beliefs were worth when profit and principle finally diverged. A female advisor, one he trusted precisely because she was not impressed by power, said it plainly. You built this on choice. Let her choose. The next day, Sondra asked to meet Hefner privately. 2 folders lay between them. One thin, expensive, final. The other thick, with risk. Why are you doing this? She asked. The real reason. Hefner looked out the window before answering. Because someone crossed a line in my house, he said. And because I've crossed lines before by doing nothing. He paused. But this isn't my war. It's yours. She opened the settlement, read the language aloud. Misunderstanding. She closed it. Then she opened the second folder. What are our chances? Coin toss, Hefner replied. Truth doesn't always win. She nodded. Then we don't go to court. Roy looked up. We don't settle either? No, Sondra said. We change the story. What followed was quieter and more devastating. Playboy published no accusations, only patterns, articles about silence, about money used to erase consequences. No names, just mirrors. Then came the women. One agreed to speak anonymously. A story from 1975. A bottle thrown. A payoff. A hotel report buried. When the piece ran, the industry recognized itself. Within days, contracts stalled. Shows vanished. Invitations stopped arriving. Not from law, but from fear. On May 5th, Tom Jones called Hefner himself. I'll do it, he said. What do you want? Come here, Hefner replied, and say it to her. The meeting was brief, painfully ordinary. No cameras, no victory speeches, just words spoken too late. When it ended, Sondra stood and spoke last. I forgive you, she said, because I deserve peace. After Tom left, she cried, not from relief, but exhaustion. Hefner held her shoulders. It's over, he said. She did not answer. She knew better now. Some endings do not close doors. They simply teach you which ones were never meant to stay open. The next morning should have felt clean. Instead, it arrived with ink. Sondra came down to the kitchen at 10. Hefner was already seated, robe tied, newspapers spread like evidence. He slid one across the table without a word. The Los Angeles Times headline made her stomach tighten. Sources confirm private apology to Playboy model. They signed confidentiality, she said, voice flat. How do they know? Hefner's expression barely moved. Roy spoke to a reporter last night, off the record. Technically, nothing was confirmed. She stared at him, understanding forming in slow, bitter steps. Even victory could be packaged, shaped, sold. 2 days later, she returned to her nursing program. The classroom smelled of chalk and stale coffee. When she entered, conversation died mid-sentence. A girl near the front didn't bother whispering. That's her, she said, loud enough. The one who accused Tom Jones. The lecture began, but Sondra barely heard it. At lunch, questions came like pokes with a stick. Did she get $500,000? Was she famous now? One student laughed and said Tom would never touch someone like that. Another leaned closer and murmured, almost apologetic, "I believe you," before being cut off by the others. Sondra walked out without tears, not because she felt strong, because she felt emptied. On May 17th, she drove to the mansion after dark. In the library, Hefner sat at the organ, hands moving slowly, as if the sound might keep the world from narrowing. She waited until the last note faded. "Why don't they believe me?" she asked. He turned on the bench. "Because belief isn't about facts," he said. "It's about what people can tolerate." He's an icon. You're a girl from a magazine. That's the hierarchy they were taught. I thought justice meant... She stopped, ashamed of the word. "It doesn't mean applause," Hefner said. "Sometimes it means you pay the bill so the next person doesn't." In late May, Playboy prepared the August issue. An editor proposed a feature framing Sondra as proof of the brand's protection. Hefner read the draft and struck a sentence with a thick line, supported by the most powerful empire in the world. He wrote in the margin, "This is about her." But when the magazine hit stands in early August, the sentence was back, reinserted without his approval. Sondra bought a copy at a gas station, read it in her car, and felt something inside her go cold. That night she called Hefner. "You used me," she said. "You turned me into a billboard." He tried to explain, but she had already decided. She would not return. For 2 weeks, she stayed away. She moved into a tiny Pasadena studio, paid rent herself, worked shifts as a waitress so she wouldn't live off a settlement she never asked to become famous for. Roy Cohn showed up once at her door, not smiling. "He's worried," Cohn said. "I want my life back," she replied. "Not their version of it. Mine." On August 16th, as she left work, a young man waited outside. Not a reporter, not security. He looked 19, tired, and terrified of his own name. "I'm Mark," he said. "Tom's son. Can we talk?" They sat across from each other in a small cafe. He didn't defend his father. He didn't accuse her. He simply said he was sorry she had been pulled into their family's damage. When he left, Sondra stayed seated, staring through the window, feeling, briefly, seen as human again. On August 20th, she returned to the mansion. Hefner was alone by the pool, a rare stillness around him. She asked the question she had avoided for months. "When you helped me, was it because you cared? Or because it was a chance to punish him?" Hefner held her gaze. "Both," he said. "And if that makes you hate me, you're entitled." He didn't dress it up. He admitted what she already suspected. He believed in her, and he also understood the value of the story. Not evil, not pure, just true. At 2:30 a.m. on August 25th, her phone rang. A man's voice, quiet, frayed. "Sondra," Tom said, "I lied on Carson. About you. About the money." She didn't gasp. She didn't argue. She let him speak until the shame ran out. "Why tell me now?" she asked. "Because I can't sleep," he whispered, "and I need someone to know." "I always knew," she said, and ended the call. Afterward, she sat in the dark, listening to her own breathing, realizing something hard and strange. She had won, and the shadows of that win would follow her longer than the fight ever did. Below is part 7 of the story, written in English, completing the arc exactly as specified. Approximately 3,000 characters. 3 years passed quietly. In September 1980, Sondra Theodore crossed a small stage to receive her nursing diploma. No cameras waited. No one whispered her name. Her mother cried. Her younger brother clapped too loudly. One friend hugged her without asking a single question about the past. After the ceremony, she found an envelope in her bag. The handwriting was familiar. I always knew you would finish this. Proud of you. H. Inside was a check. She tore it once. Then again. Not in anger, out of clarity. Some ties are strongest when they are finally cut. That autumn, Hugh Hefner sat in a quiet office far from the mansion, speaking to a therapist he had seen for years. When asked why he had fought so hard for one young woman, he told a story he had never shared publicly. About a girl in the early 1950s. About a photographer he had protected instead of confronting. About silence chosen for the sake of an empire still fragile. She died 6 months later, he said. And Sondra. She was a chance to do something I didn't earn the right to redo. The therapist said nothing. There was nothing to say. Tom Jones's decline did not happen all at once. It unraveled. By 1979, American audiences had moved on. He returned to Britain, then to smaller venues, then to places where applause felt polite rather than earned. In a 1985 interview, he was asked about the year everything changed. He answered carefully, "I made mistakes, and I live with them." In 1982, Sondra attended a medical conference in Las Vegas. One evening, passing a lounge, she heard a voice she knew by instinct. Tom Jones was singing to 40 people, not thousands. The song was familiar. The voice was tired. She stayed at the back. Afterward, she approached the bar, sat beside him. He recognized her slowly. They did not revisit the past. They did not apologize again. She paid for a drink he hadn't ordered and left. He did not follow. Years later, in the 1990s, Hefner was asked in a documentary what he regretted most. He spoke of power mistaken for freedom, of cages disguised as choice. When pressed to name one woman who proved him wrong, he refused. "She asked me not to," he said, "and she earned that." In 2012, Sondra finally spoke publicly. Once. Older now. Calmer. Her words were measured. "He wasn't a hero," she said of Hefner, "but he gave me a choice when it mattered. And I took it." She admitted the cost, the isolation, the doubt that never fully left. But she also named the truth she had learned. "Surviving isn't victory," she said. "Living afterward is." After Hefner's death in 2017, Sondra watched the news from her home in Northern California. Her daughter asked if she had known him. "Once," she replied, "a long time ago." Later that night, she opened a box she rarely touched. Inside were 3 things: her magazine photo, a letter she had once torn and taped back together, and a small black notebook. On the last page, written years earlier, were words she had never seen before. "You were right. I used the world to protect you, but you taught me that protection without honesty is still control. Thank you for choosing yourself." H. 2009 *. She closed the book. In 2024, during renovations at the old mansion, workers found a hidden safe. Inside was a single photograph, a Polaroid from January 1977. Proof long buried. On the back, beneath an old lie, was a second inscription. "Some truths don't need evidence." She never did. H. The story did not end with justice. It ended with restraint. Because sometimes the greatest act of respect is letting someone live without being defined by the worst night of their life.